History Hook. My name is Ella and I work at the National Archives, where we collect and preserve the government records of the United Kingdom. This session introduces the lesson called Belsen Concentration Camp. Records of concentration camps in the territories which the Nazis occupied until the end of the Second World War exist in many of our collections, and so it's very important that we understand how we can find them. Every box in our collection has a unique reference. It always begins with some letters and can often give us a clue about what the contents may be about. For example, the letters WO stand for War Office. So that collection will be about the way the British Army was administered, a bit like the Admiralty administrating the Royal Navy or the Air Ministry administrating the Royal Air Force. Our box has the reference FO followed by the number 916, and it was created for the purpose of keeping records of files to do with prisoners of war. Perhaps you've already worked out what FO might stand for, but don't worry if you haven't. You probably will work it out as we progress through the activities which follow. So before we open the box and find out what the document is inside, I'd like you to think of a few questions you could ask yourselves about a historical document which you've never seen before. For example, when I first look at a document, the question I usually ask myself is, what type of document is it? Is it a letter, a speech? Perhaps it's a list? So in just 30 seconds, I'm going to ask you to do this and come up with as many other questions as you can, which could help us in the understanding of the document that we're going to look at today. So are you ready? Here we go. Great. Let's see if you came up with similar questions to these. So firstly, what is it about? Sometimes, even on the trickiest of documents to read, you may be able to pick out a few words which give us a hint about the content. Secondly, when was it made or when was it created? This actually can be quite difficult when you're looking at original documents because you don't always have a date. But sometimes it's how the document is written and the style of handwriting that can give us a clue and give it away a little bit. So who made it? The document may look as if it was created for an official purpose, so lots of stamps everywhere. But it also might look as if it's perhaps a little bit more personal. Who's it for? Why was it made? And again, sometimes these can be a bit obvious, but often we have to look a little bit closer to work them out. There's one last question I want to ask you about this and why it's important to know that it's kept at the National Archives. So think of some reasons why it's kept with us here. So let's take a look inside the box, just in 20 seconds. Don't worry if you think it's not a lot of time. I just want you to look generally, not at the small details or the writing, but just the layout of the document and what you might think it could be. See if you can describe it in just a word, and how many questions you can answer. Okay, what did you notice? Different handwriting, different colours used to sign names. Lots of dates, numbers. Perhaps there are some names of places that you recognise, and perhaps there's some names of places that you've never heard of before. There may well have been other things you've spotted about this document, but let's take another look at it closely and consider the reason why it was sent. And I'll give you a bit longer this time, 45 seconds. See if you can get as much information as you possibly can, just focusing on the top half of the document this time, just the top. We'll look at the second half a bit later. Did you work out that this is actually a telegram? Perhaps you noticed where it was sent from and to whom. And perhaps you made a decision as whether you thought it might be urgent or not. You should always have an answer for what you think, though. Let's look at it a little bit more carefully and perhaps pick out those small details that you didn't have time to see earlier on. The other thing I'd like you to concentrate on is the purpose of the message. So again, another 45 seconds to find out as much as you can. The use of telegrams during the Second World War was the quickest and safest way to send messages. So we can assume that this telegraph was probably urgent. If we look at the dates the telegram was sent and received, and then we compare them with the dates that are at the bottom of the telegram, some of them are actually a month later. Did you notice this? And if you did you have a reason why you think that there was such a delay? It's the second paragraph, really, in this document, which suggests something very disturbing. And again, I'll give you 45 seconds to have a little look at this and consider what some of those words that are being used may mean. This one paragraph tells us about the horrors of the camp systems. The language used to describe what is now known as the Holocaust differs to how we perhaps use language to describe the events which occurred. Evacuation, for example, was a term used regularly during the Second World War to take people to safety. We know about the evacuation of children from big cities during the Second World War. Repatriation usually means to send somebody back to their homeland, but it's the word elimination here that I want you to think about very carefully. Here it's used as a euphemism, and it suggests unlawful killing. By August 1944, over 2 years had passed since the mass killings of Jews began. Very often, Jews in towns and cities would be forced into ghettos, areas which were fenced off from the rest of the population. Their movement from one place of horror to the next was known as deportation, and the destinations were mostly unknown to the victims of the Holocaust. Here at the National Archives, we have a lot of information about the Holocaust and the many experiences and reactions to those terrible events. 8 months after this telegram was sent, in April 1945, British and American troops liberated the camp of Bergen-Belsen. During its existence in the Second World War, it was a prisoner of war camp, a forced labour camp, and a transit camp. After liberation, it became a camp for displaced persons. These were victims who had survived the horrors of the Nazi camp system and included Jews, political prisoners of many different nationalities, and ethnic minorities. Our records detail what the British Army discovered at the camp soon after it was liberated. Those who gave evidence in the war crimes trials also left us with vital information, and that is why so much more is known about this camp than that of the 5 death camps from which there were very few survivors. We've chosen our sources for this lesson, which follows: very carefully so as not to cause distress, but to help you understand some of the events which took place during this time of an unprecedented humanitarian disaster.